Hey everybody, my name is Chris Benson. I'm with my co-host Alex Puente, and we're with Freed by Real Estate and excited today to share some information on the real estate strategies, single family versus multifamily. Which one do I choose? We're going to talk more about some strategies within within single family and just kind of a high level so you can get an overview of some of the strategies we've experienced and some of the team has experienced, and maybe go down a rabbit hole to choose which strategy is right for you. So Alex, thanks for joining me today.
Hey, thanks for having me, Chris.
Tell me a little bit about, just give us a high level overview of you and real estate experience, and how'd you get connected to Freed?
Yeah, of course. I started going full-time and investing in real estate back in the spring of 2020. So I would say that was a time when if you just fell into real estate, you made money.
Yeah.
And things were booming. Interest rates were at rock bottom. Borrowing money couldn't have been cheaper, and it seemed like there was deals everywhere.
Yeah.
From that, luckily I built a good, strong foundation with some disciplined and experienced and successful real estate investors here at Freed. We weren't called Freed back then, but now that we are, since we were able to buy right and correctly and operate within certain parameters of kind of the real estate basics, we were able to leverage that into some pretty substantial and impressive portfolios that are going to last, well past this dip that we're in right now.
Okay. And experience-wise, as far as real estate, do you have experience single family, multi, and then what kind of strategies have you experienced?
So now experiencing both, but when I started out, it was in single family. It's about multifamily, so from a single family up to about a fourplex.
Okay.
And yeah, that's where I kind of wet my beak and got into it.
Okay. Great. Well, thanks for joining us, and we'll get into some of your experience when we talk about some strategies. So
the good and the bad.
Yeah. This is not a podcast show that says, "Hey, like everything's rosy." There are some challenges. We're about to. Hopefully, we can talk about those to save you a whole bunch of headache. So,
yeah, you learn through our pain.
I mean, you're going to have headache. It's just a matter of where you're prepared for it, and that's what we want to. We want to be real. Also, pros and cons, because for both of us, it's been life changing. Real estate ownership has been life changing, and we want to jump into that. So, my experience, I fell into real estate as a real estate agent because the guy said, "You'd be really good at this." I literally said, "What's real estate?" I had to figure that out, search online, and thought, hey, I got nothing to lose. Let's try this, and got into real estate sales. Started with foreclosures. We had a foreclosure contract.
That sounds like a lot of fun.
Oh, dude, it was fun. It was fun. So I had in my trunk like a break-in kit. Bank would say, "Here's the house. It's ready." They'd say, "How many minutes can you take to get over to the house, see if it's occupied?" And if it was not occupied, I was breaking in. Rekeying the property, assessing what needed to be done, clean out, and there was some crazy stuff, man.
Listen, never a dull moment. And the Chris Benson story. This is just the tip of the iceberg, people.
Oh, dude.
But
maybe
it only gets better from here.
Some of the things I've seen in those houses I can't talk about here.
Got kids watching.
Kids watching. This is a family show.
It is a family show.
But it was incredible. I did not make a bunch of money doing that. Where I made money and had experience was our agreement was I got to answer all the calls that came from the signs. So we'd have a foreclosure. It'd be a $200,000 retail house and listed at $80,000. And guess who was calling? I mean, it was like it needed rehab. It needed everything. Mm-hmm. And I was building my network of experience and investors because that's who was calling. And I literally had no idea what I was doing, but I knew I had to learn quick, and I did.
Well, what's interesting is it's such a difficult job, especially working with foreclosure properties, that it sounds like that didn't stop you or turn you off from stepping into the real estate world, but actually you leaned into it and pushed even harder.
Yeah, actually that comes back to a principle that I tell everyone, which is find a way to get a lot of experience in the beginning. Learn from someone, get those reps in, because that's more important than making the most money. I mean, we want to get there, but if you've got a strong foundation educationally, say I've got a good network, I've learned some things, first years, it's going to take you a long way.
Yeah. It sounds like just experience is the best teacher.
That's what happened. Yeah, I fell into that without choosing that, knowing I was choosing that, and then I'm thankful that someone said, "Hey, you'd be good at this." And that same real estate agent said, "When you buy a house, never sell it." So our first rental was the first house we bought.
Wow.
6 months later, we had a job that required us to change, and I had my first rental. Self-managing it. It was a single family, 2-bed, 1 bath. Bought it for something, a 60, 70,000. Still own it.
I mean, obviously it worked out, but it's you definitely moved on from the single family
I have
portfolio since then.
Single family, multi, now working with Freed. So, yes, sir.
man.
Did you have people in the beginning that really helped you? Like, how did you gain that confidence to keep growing and be keep growing your portfolio and your experience?
You know what? I bought my first rental property when I was in the Marine Corps and I was stationed in Hawaii. I had no idea what I was doing. This is 2014. It was a townhome. It was across the street from a water sewage plant. It was about 900 square feet. And
A water sewage plant.
yeah, and
It smelled delicious.
And if the wind was blowing the right way, you got it. Yeah, just don't breathe through your mouth.
Man.
But it was. I had no idea what I was doing. I used the VA home loan, which was an incredible tool. Is an incredible tool, and I basically put zero down on a $300,000 property because real estate in Hawaii only does this.
Yeah.
And I cash flowed maybe $100 a month, and because I lived in Thailand at the time.
You lived in Thailand, bought this property in Hawaii.
That's right. Yeah, just before I had executed orders to Thailand, and so I had a management company manage it. I think I might have changed one microwave throughout my 3.5, 4 years of owning it, and then I sold it. And I wish I would have known the real estate agent that you had met and mentored you to tell you never sell real estate. Yeah, because I'll go back now and I'll look at what the value is and what it's turned into, and it hurts. It hurts sometimes.
Yeah.
But when I went full time real estate investing, I partnered with the CEO of Freed by Real Estate, and that's Mike Kramer, and did exactly what the Kramers did. Started out wholesaling, so I took their wholesaling playbook and I brought that to New Orleans. And then after had some success wholesaling, and I was like, hey, I want to build financial freedom and generational wealth. And I don't want to. I'm doing a great job connecting with investors and getting them, properties that they can then either flip or BRRRR themselves. And just decided, I was like, hey, I want to start owning some of these. And so that's when I shifted from wholesaling completely to the BRRRR model and then wholesaling even.
Yeah.
How about
Great.
you? What's I guess as we go down this road of kind of the single family versus multifamily basics, what are some things that you think are important for people to know?
Yeah, well, let's start with let's start at a high level, because for me this is sharing information that I wish someone would have helped me make a strategic decision. I don't know if I'd say lucky, but I had wise counsel that I listened to. And we want to be that for you if you say, hey, like I might try this. I think it's really important to be in a community, ask people who know you, get to know people in the different fields that you're considering and or different areas you're considering investing. So you can weigh the pros, cons, and choose a strategy that is right for you to get started. That's the big thing. Have wise advice, study, and get started.
In short, what Chris is saying is just learn from our failures.
Yeah, learn from
because there are many.
Yeah.
And there are expensive lessons. I would call them expensive tuition payments.
Yeah. Yeah. Cool. Let's start. What is single family? Let's start with the basics. Single family, it's usually a single unit dwelling. Sometimes it's connected like a townhouse that still is just a single family, even though it's attached. So it's not a duplex, which is 2, or a triplex, which is 3. It's a single unit property dwelling. The pros of that is it's easy to finance. There's a lot of options for financing. Typically lower upfront costs. Like Alex bought a house where he lived in, a VA home or VA loan, which means 0% down, and it's sometimes easier to manage for new investors. But there are drawbacks.
To single family homes, yes. And those challenges, they lie more in the limited income potential compared to multifamily. Think of, just on average, if you are cash flowing $250 a door. So that's what that essentially means is after your principal, your interest, your taxes, and your insurance payments, if you're still then cash flowing $200 a door, $250 a door, in baseball terms, that'd be considered a single. It's a solid rental, but you can see that, hey, if I'm only making $250 a month, you times that by 12, and now it's not a lot of money. So you are one refrigerator, you're one HVAC system away from clearing out all of that cash flow.
Yep.
And that's also if you're self-managing.
Yep.
If you have to hire a property manager, there's 7 to 10% right there on top of that. And that cash flow disappears really quickly. Second, it's going to be really hard to scale. There's going to be a challenge to scale quickly, because if you buy one house and you've got to renovate it, you've got one crew on that one house, and as opposed to an apartment building, for example, where you might have 100 units under one roof, where you can basically, you can have existing cash flow, pay for renovations, and then kind of do a staggered approach on scheduling those renovations. So kind of a long-winded answer for, a small portion of the difference between single family and multifamily.
Yeah, when we're in Omaha, there's a lot of single family, so you can get a lot of reps, but think of, like, if I have a goal of 25, 50, 100,000 of passive income, doing that at $250 a door means I gotta buy a lot of properties, manage a lot of insurance policies, manage a lot of utility. Everything's just, every location is another rep.
It is.
For all of those things.
It is. It feels like death by a million paper cuts sometimes. I think you mentioned a great point there. You're like, hey, there's different insurance policies. There's also, one closing versus 100 closings.
Yeah.
There's all these kind of hidden costs in there that you really don't consider when you're stepping into it.
That's
and
fair
so while it may be a bit more intimidating to step into an apartment building or a larger unit count under one roof, there's certainly some advantages to that.
Well, let's just think of costs with a loan origination charge. I've got a single family, and a single family has a loan with a loan origination charge, whereas I could buy a multifamily, which is anything more than one unit.
Correct.
In a single parcel. So it could be 350 units to a two unit.
I think on top of that too, when I was wholesaling full time, and even now, what we find with a lot of our sellers on the wholesaling side, they tend to be tired landlords. These are landlords that went the single family route, and they've maybe got 4, 5, 6, 7 properties, and they're at a point where they're like, hey, I'm tired of getting maintenance calls on Christmas Eve.
Yep.
I'm tired of managing this myself. It's not all it was hyped up to be. Yes, there are some benefits, but ultimately, for them, the lesson learned is the volume game. It just wasn't enough doors to produce enough cash flow that would then set them on this path for financial freedom.
Yeah, and that comes into buying right, which we'll get into here in a little bit. Let's just, the basic level, multifamily. What are the pros, cons? Benefits, it's higher cash flow potential because you have multiple tenants instead of a single family. If I have no tenant or I'm in a rehab, I have no income. So I'm spreading out income risk, more resilient to vacancies because I'm spreading out that, and easier to scale. So if I have a loan, on 20 units, 100 units, 4 units, single loan, all the fees, instead of I'm going single family by single family each, typically with a loan. And a cost and a closing fee and all the management that comes with that. But there are challenges with multifamily.
Yeah, those challenges are obviously, you're going to have a higher initial cost, right? It's the sale price. If we'll use the example of a single family to a multifamily, like 100 unit, that's going to be, one could be a couple $100,000 where the other one could be a couple million. So initially there's going to be that higher cost to pay. Second is going to be the complexity in management, because this is where, if it's just a handful of single families, you could do it yourself. But when it comes to managing the renovations and managing the tenants, you'll quickly find out that this turns into a full-time job and then some. And so, maybe that is a husband, a wife, a partner, someone to help shoulder the burden or the load, especially on the high unit count on the multifamily side. I'd say finally would be financing. So, again, it's easy for a bank to approve someone for, $200,000 loan. I can see your financials. You got it. You've got the history. You've got the experience. But when you get into these, high dollar count, these $1 million value homes or apartment buildings, the bank's going to want to see performance of the asset itself, as well as your ability to guarantee the loan. if that if that's the financing route that people go. So again, pros and cons, and I feel like I'm negative Nancy over here, dropping all the challenges.
Yeah. Well, one of the upsides of a multifamily is a lot of the banks will loan in portfolio loans internal to the bank, which means you can have much more of a relationship based approach with that loan officer, because they're much more concerned globally with what does this asset look like? Is it a strong asset in the community? As well as looking at your financial statement. Whereas if I'm buying a single family using sort of a conventional loan, there's very strict requirements for the lender in there. And so sometimes you get a lot more flexibility on the multifamily. However, that lender will be more likely to be a partner with you and probably want to see more capital reserves, because now, let's say I have a 12 unit that has 12 air conditioners instead of a single family that has one air conditioner, that I need to be prepared, like those are going to go out over a course of whatever, 20 to 30 years. Mm-hmm. I've got 12 families' lives on the line. I can't be living month to month because a roof, AC, a furnace, a water heater will go out. I should just expect it. And I've got to be able to fix that quickly.
Yeah, there's certainly a responsibility that you have as a real estate owner, as a landlord, and that's obviously one, to your lender, to your bank, to yourself, to your own family, but also to your tenants. And I don't think anyone's more important than the other. And in that case, right now we're currently filming in Nebraska. It's not in the single digits outside, but it's close. And that's one of those things where, hey, we want to make sure that heat is working when it needs to be, and on the other side, and those hotter, warmer clients.
Well, I had a call, interestingly enough, this weekend from the city, which is always great. The city calls, and I have a property manager on that property. They call and say, hey, you got no heat in the unit. I'm like, I got no information about this, or I have no specific knowledge. I'm sure they're taking care of it. So then I call the manager, and they're waiting for a part. Like, the part's in the mail. And the city says, we got 3 days to fix the heat.
Wow.
And the part's in the mail. So it was fine, because they were reasonable. If you treat them nice, they're doing their job, which is to make sure landlords are not skipping out on heat in the winter. And it was like, we got 3 days according to city code to fix that. I think we hit that. Maybe they gave us an extra day because the part was coming. But, sometimes you'll get those calls, and you got to be able to say, how do I navigate that? How do I get the right people on board? Sometimes that is going to cost more because you need to fix something quickly.
Yeah, it sounds like it's way more than a math problem. It's a human business. And so being able to navigate those relationships is key.
Yeah, prepare that you're going to be more than just a number cruncher. You're going to need to connect. And if you treat people well, you'll be fine. So let's focus mostly today on the single family, because if we're getting started in real estate, most people are going to start at that level. If you say, hey, I want to jump in to do something big, more than a single family, great. You can still use a lot of these strategies. So let's start, since most people tend to go in the single family side, with a couple of strategies that we've used. And I would encourage you to say, if one of these catches your attention, go deep in it. There's books, there's other resources. Ask us, because we've done all of these. I've done all these at different levels, and many of these both with single family and multi-level or multifamily. So first one, the BRRRR. BRRRR. What does that stand for?
Enough R's, yeah.
4 R's?
That stands
BRRRR, for... Which is also what it is in Nebraska right now.
For real.
Okay, we got all the dad jokes.
I love it. I love a good acronym. BRRRR stands for buy, renovate, rent, refinance, and repeat.
Okay.
Which essentially means, hey, when I buy a property, I'm purchasing it, then I'm renovating that property. And then once I renovate it, then I'm going to rent it out, so that then I can then take that lease to a bank and do a cash out refinance, pull all my money out, and then repeat that process.
Yeah. So
did I miss anything?
Who's the kind of person that should do this? No, that's right. I'm buying a property that's probably add value, but needs a lot of work.
Correct.
Usually.
Correct.
And I'm going to do something called force appreciate. So let's say the ARV, the market value, if I was in the retail market's 200, this thing's worth 80. but it needs 40,000 of renovation. I mean, it's pretty good. Needs a pretty good rehab. So I'm going to do something called force appreciate that, so the value can come up to the market, and that means I'm creating equity for myself, and create equity when I go to a bank and say, "What's this worth?" That can happen quickly because I've improved the property and made it into a retail condition instead of like a foreclosure condition or an investor only type of condition. I've changed the type of buyer, which does change the value because now it's a retail valuation instead of this is about to fall over, this needs some work kind of valuation.
Yeah, and some of the drawbacks to the BRRRR strategy, first off, it's going to require a significant amount of capital up front, right? Because you're going to need money to either, well, one, to buy it for sure, to buy the property, but then also potentially to renovate it. And what that level of renovation could look like, if we're talking about a full remodel on a 1,500 square foot house, that could be anywhere from 50 to 100 grand, depending on what your standard is for renovating. And so, second, a lot kind of like that same vein of renovating, when it comes to managing that construction, is that something you're going to self-manage? Is that someone you're going to hire out to do the work, like a general contractor? And if it's you alone managing it or doing the work yourself, it's like, what does your experience look like doing that? Because again, there's going to be this education, this tuition payment, whether it be actual dollars or that sweat equity that you're putting into it.
Yeah, you are going to have to add value into the property, whether it's your income, money, sweat equity. This strategy sometimes is used by people who say you can buy property with no money.
Correct.
You can, and they're often using this strategy
none of your own money.
None of your own money.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's
money.
clarify.
I mean, I'm sure someone found a way. I'm sure someone's got a story.
There's probably a way. But that's hard money. Often you can find hard money which says, hey, I can renovate or I can purchase without any of my own money. And then they refinance out of that with a long-term financing after they've done the renovation, done the rehab. So that is possible, but the risks are you need to know. Make sure you're buying correctly. Like you said, the rehab budget. This can be something that the execution really matters because I've seen many people undervalue their rehab budget and they get in and say, this is way more.
Well, it always costs a little bit more, takes longer than you expect on the construction side.
I forgot the insurance. I forgot those utilities, and all of a sudden there's all your profit and you got a great education.
And hopefully a house that younger Chris didn't show up on during foreclosure.
Yeah, that's right. So next, that will lead into a long-term hold strategy. Sometimes people will often they'll refinance, and then hold that property, and then go do that again. So what is a long-term hold?
So long-term rental is going to be that traditional tenant that signs a 12-month minimum lease.
Yeah.
And then
these are people that live in the community. Usually they're working. They're 12 months, and sometimes they're not homeowners. They typically will renew and stay with the property year in and year out.
Correct. And you'll have your on-market tenants or your retail tenants, which are people that are paying out of pocket, and then you'll have your either federal or state-funded tenants, and those will be certain, again, government programs where the tenant is on some kind of voucher where that government entity is paying for their rent, and that could either be partial payments or full payments.
Yeah, and a lot of municipalities are very pro long-term because they want housing for people. And so this is typically when someone says, I'm going to build a portfolio, they're going for a long-term hold.
That's right.
It's more common. So what's a midterm? We've heard that. Sometimes it seems kind of a new thing.
Yeah, a midterm rental. So it's an adaptation in the market. for rentals. So a midterm rental is something that a tenant is going to sign up for a minimum 30 days. So think of those traveling professionals, right? Especially during COVID, during the lockdowns, we saw a lot of traveling medical professionals, or even other professionals that wanted to kind of travel and live remote because they didn't have to do their job in person. And so again, it's going to be a 30-day stay. Typically, that property is going to be furnished. And utilities are usually going to be included within that tenant's monthly rent bill.
Yep. You do need to be prepared for some sort of internet, utilities. You're going to be paying all of that with that monthly fee. So it's sort of like that tenant pays flat rate. Which is more than the long term rental.
Correct.
But there, it's all included.
Correct.
Kind of rate.
Yeah, that's right.
And then you got to furnish that, so you got to their capital expenditure that up front is going to be higher.
Yeah, there is definitely a cost to the furnishing that I think a lot of people don't take into account, especially if it's a property that they're not living in, that the property owner isn't living in. It's something that the just a standalone midterm rental. You're furnishing a whole second house. That doesn't just include the furniture. I think it goes. How do I say it? When you actually furnish a home, you don't realize like how many things you actually need. From utensils to appliances to cleaning equipment to the backup number of sheets and linens, all the things. Laundry detergent, all kinds of stuff. Again, this stuff adds up pretty quick.
Yeah, because your time starts to add up. Each of these take time.
Exactly.
Whereas if I'm in a long term, it's like set it and forget it unless something's broken. Like this is your house, like light bulbs and whatnot. You're changing that as a tenant. Whereas here, it's like this is the balance between the short term. Because in a short term experience, I am a host. I've created an experience. They're coming typically for the experience or for a weekend or for a short-term stay. So I am not just here's your key. It's, hey, the internet doesn't work or I can't get the TV on. You better be ready on the short-term rental, Airbnb, VRBO to, you're an experience creator oftentimes, not just a long-term investor. And that shift really matters.
100%. And the short-term rentals, those are minimum one-night stays. And what you'll see is a long weekend or a week, maybe two. And again, it's very seasonal as opposed to the midterm rental, which is more probably work focused.
Yeah.
The short-term rental is more of a vacation for those tenants. And so while you can find both on Airbnb, Verbo, Furnish Finders, there's a lot of different third-party sites that you can go to or use. But yeah, the short-term rental is definitely more, think of when you go to a hotel, that's going to be your short-term rental.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. You've also have experience. We've heard the term wholesaling. You've had quite a bit of experience wholesaling. What does that mean? Give us the snapshot. That's a lot of how you started with your experience wholesaling. I've done that only a little bit. So what's high level? What's wholesaling?
In short, it's finding discounted properties and then turning around and selling those discounted properties to an investor for a fee.
Okay. So I have a relationship I build that relationship. I say, I'll put it under contract with them for a certain price. And then I will go find the end buyer who's willing to buy that for a little bit more.
Correct. The wholesalers can also, and it depends on kind of where you are in the country, but typically wholesalers are known to be real estate agents without the license. And the reason they've kind of developed a niche is because they operate in these investment property bubbles, if you will. And what happens there is, say, for example, I'm from New Orleans. Wholesale properties there, or investment properties, might have been vacant since Hurricane Katrina, which happened in 2005. This is 2024. So these properties might only be worth, let's say, 20 grand. So I build a relationship with the seller. Let's say I buy it from the seller for 10 grand. I then turn around and I find an investor and sell it to them for 20, and I make a $10,000 assignment fee. So a traditional real estate agent, and you could probably talk on this, would not have a lot of interest in a property like that, mainly because if they're only making 4 to 6% on that property, it's not necessarily worth their time.
Yeah, this could be a niche and a way that where a traditional real estate agent says they don't have focus in that area, where you can add focus and help that seller feel like they're getting their time of day with that relationship building, because there is a little bit more margin for the wholesaler than the real estate agent there. And then lastly is flipping, which is basically taking the BRRRR strategy. I'm creating a retail product, and instead of holding that, so I refinance and hold it, I'm putting that on the market, typically with the real estate agent trying to maximize the dollar, and then creating an income usually from that. So instead of building wealth, so flipping, a key difference is that will create income, meaning ordinary income. That's how I live. It typically doesn't build long-term wealth because I'm not holding the asset when I'm done fixing that up.
Yeah, and some of the cons to flipping are going to be the high risk in the buying it right. So if you want to buy it right, you want to plan your renovation correctly, your renovation budget correctly, and kind of the next step of that, or the next part of that, is in your turnaround and you're selling it. So you're putting it on the market. So the market's going to tell you pretty quickly whether you've done your homework on the math or not. And if you have that, it'll sell and you'll make a good margin, and then you'll turn around and probably do it again and continue to repeat that process. Yep. But if your math is wrong and you're in it for more than it's worth, then there's risk in losing that money. And
the strategy, the quality of finish on the rehab's different. If you're going to flip retail market versus flip, or during the BRRRR strategy where I am renovating to a tenant versus renovating to a homeowner, a little bit different, higher quality, less margin for error. So thanks for your time today. We talked about multifamily versus single family, talked about some of the strategies in there, and we've both failed a lot in both of those, and both have had fairly good success in those. The key has been good people around us. It's been jumping in, getting into action, trying it, and then also along the way, just devouring, learning. So, and seeing every failure and every call, like from the city, as an opportunity to learn, is there a system problem or is this just part of the business? What advice would you add as we wrap this up for someone saying where do I go from here and how do I get started?
Well, I think it's two things. One, it's action oriented, right? You need to be doing something, moving in that direction if this is something you really want to pursue. And if you reach an obstacle or you get to a place where you don't know, then ask for help. And I would ask from someone that you would be willing to trade places with. Someone that is an expert in their field, has that experience. And when you ask, I'd present them some sort of value that you bring to them to incentivize them to want to work with you as well. Yeah.
Well, appreciate your time. We look forward to connecting more and diving deep into these subjects as we continue the journey through growth and the community.